Hello folks, this week has turned out to be the week of announcements, with the biggest being the release date for the next major patch of the War Within 11.2.0, Wings of Karesh. But we've also had updates on the next Winds of Mysterious Fortune event, which looks like it's going to be very useful for players who still need to wrap up their Undermine reputations in mount hunting, and yet another update on player housing. Stay tuned, there's a lot to cover this week. The new patch will be releasing the week of the 5th of August, and as is usual, the main seasonal content will be releasing the following week. But this time around, the Heroic and Mythic 0 dungeon pools, along with delves, will be available from day 1 of the patch, along with the ability to start collecting Season 3 champion level gear. This means that the transition between the seasons is going to be a little bit different to what we've been used to, and if you have any unfinished Season 2 goals, this could affect you. Blizzard have not shared all of the fine details of that transition, but this week I am going to run you through what we do know, but also take a look at what we don't know and try to fill in some of those gaps for you. Starting off with the patch content itself, the main content will be dropping of course on the week of the 5th and will consist of a brand new zone, Karesh, along with the return of the broker city of Tazavesh as an open world hub city. These areas will play host to a new 4-chapter main storyline, 3 of which will be available in week 1, with the 4th chapter unlocking with the completion of the raid the following week. More on that shortly, along with all the usual stuff that you can expect from open world content. One difference to what we are used to though is that the new world boss, Reshinor the Untethered, will be available in week 1 of the patch instead of waiting for the main seasonal start. I will be releasing a separate full preview video of the new patch's content and gameplay before it comes out, so if you're not already a subscriber, do hit that button so that you don't miss it. The new raid, Manaforge Omega, opens the following week of August the 12th in normal, heroic and mythic difficulty, as will the first wing of Looking for Raid. Those of you who can complete the raid on the week 1 of its opening will be able to continue the campaign with the final chapter 4, which as usual has not been available on the PTR and remains a bit of a mystery. The following week of the 19th of August sees the opening of the second wing of LFR along with story mode, which will allow solo or small group players to defeat a simplified version of the final boss and gain access to that final campaign chapter. And the final wing of LFR opens just 1 week later, starting the 26th of August. I am genuinely mystified why the developers continue to delay access to LFR and especially story mode, putting a lot of effort into making sure that the end of patch stories don't get spoiled, only to then prevent a significant proportion of the player base from being able to do it themselves for a full week after the first wave of players start sharing it online and talking about it. Just makes no rational sense to me. The usual argument in favour of the delay is to avoid players and guilds from feeling pressured to rush into LFR just for the story. That argument does have some merit, but the cost of spoiling the story for a large chunk of the player base is in my view far too high a price to pay just to protect a minority from themselves, and in my view the current situation at this stage just amounts to developer stubbornness. Anyways, moving over to the new dungeon pool, which consists of Arakara, Dawnbreaker, Operation Floodgate, Priory of the Sacred Flame, Halls of Atonement, Tazavesh, and a brand new dungeon, Ecodome Aldani. These will be launching a week earlier than usual on the 5th of August in normal, heroic and mythic 0 difficulty only, with the exception of Tazavesh. For mythic plus difficulty, we will still need to wait until the following week starting on the 12th. For Tazavesh, mythic plus will of course get the 2 wings, Streets of Wonder and Solia's Gambit, but we're also seeing the return of the full 8-boss mega dungeon in hard mode difficulty as well. According to the developers, this is going to be tuned to around Mythic plus 10 difficulty and will be offering exactly the same rewards as a plus 10, essentially giving players who don't like the Mythic Plus timer an alternative way to obtain Mythic Track Vault gear along with gilded crests. Delvers are also going to be getting an early start to the season, with all difficulty tiers being available from day 1 of the patch on the 5th of August, along with a brand new delve, the Archival Assault, which is set in Dragonflight's Azure Vaults. That said, while we will be able to access the higher difficulty levels, Bountiful Delves and Delver's Bounty Keys will not be available for the first week, nor will the new seasonal boss, Nexus Princess Kyveza. And while the developers did not mention the Delver's Bounty map, I think it's a safe assumption that that will not be available either. All of these features will of course go live the following week, just as you'd expect. One other thing that Blizzard have not mentioned is the fate of overcharged delves, but all the indication from the PTR is that these are going to go away, along with the Titan console upgrade tree. However, the Titan disc belt will still be obtainable, with the quest and upgrades adjusted to remove the overcharged requirement. And for PvP players, well, things are pretty much as normal, with the season opening on the 12th of August. This early opening of Delves and Mythic Zero dungeons does have some significant implications for a gear progression. That is, unless Blizzard decides to also rework the gear drops, which personally I think is looking pretty unlikely at this stage. Mythic Zero dungeons drop 1 out of 8 champion tier gear along with carved crests. These dungeons will be subject to a weekly lockout, which did make a return for Season 2, so they are not farmable. But with every boss having a chance to drop gear, a world tour of Mythic Zero will still offer a decent haul of upgrades, even for players fully decked out in Season 2 Myth Track gear. And while Mythic Zero also only awards Champion 4 out of 4 gear from the weekly vault, and Delves only drop veteran level loot without the Delver's Bounty, Tier 8 and above Delves do offer Hero Track gear from the weekly vault, meaning that players who do have time to push into the higher delve tiers can get a decent starter piece from the vault at the start of week 2 of the season. While these numbers could still change, currently in the PTR, gear has seen a 45 item level bump, with champion tier starting out at item level 681, which means that players with fully upgraded Myth Track gear would only need to spend some of the crests and 2 upgrades to see a benefit in week 1, and the heroic gear is starting at item level 694. What this will mean in practice is that players who want to min-max their gear before the season opens proper will likely want to do a full world tour of the available 6 Mythic Zero dungeons, along with unlocking delves up to at least tier 8 and then running enough to fully unlock the hero track choices in the vault. That all said, for those who don't have the time to fully min-max their vault, my personal advice would be to focus on pushing delves up to tier 11, or at least as high as you can, which will organically unlock 2 hero slots in the vault, and then spend whatever remaining time you have on the Mythic Zero dungeons. With only a belt slot being above 694 item level, you would have to be spectacularly unlucky to not get an upgrade from 2 heroic slots in the vault. And even if you did end up with 2 belts, you're only 15 rune crests away from turning that into what will very likely still be an upgrade. Now, there are a couple of things gear-wise that Blizzard have not shared with us as yet, such as the availability of sparks and catalyst charges. My own personal guess is that the catalyst charges will not start until the week of the 12th, but I could see the half spark starting in week 1, giving us a first crafted gear opportunity the second week. Now, getting access to champion gear and Mythic Zero dungeons in the pre-season week does raise some questions about when the Season 2 content will become unavailable. Blizzard hasn't yet provided an update on this. This usually comes around 14 days before the official season ends, but we can probably hazard a few guesses on how it will play out. Because these are just guesses, if you have any important seasonal goals, be it ahead of the curve, Keystone Master or Keystone Legend, or even just the seasonal mounts, my advice is to work on the basis that those could go away as early as the 5th of August. That said, for Raiders, I personally see no reason why ahead of the curve and Cutting Edge would not continue until the raid opens proper on the 12th of August. Blizzard historically have not been super precious about the impact of gear on these particular achievements. For Mythic Plus though, I do expect that the main Mythic Plus seasonal title, which is awarded for the top 0.1% of players, will end on the 5th of August. The last couple of weeks of the title push is a major grind for participants, and I personally think that an influx of even minor gear upgrades at that point could impact that race a lot more than the developers would be comfortable with. It's very hard to say if Blizzard would or even can keep the Season 2 Mythic dungeons active alongside the Season 3 Mythic Zero. So I do think that there is a significant chance that the Keystone Master and Keystone Legend mounts will also go away on the 5th of August along with the portals. But if Blizzard do manage to keep the Mythic Plus dungeons going, then I would expect the mounts and portals would remain available until the 12th. My advice though is don't bank on that happening. For Delves, with the new seasonal boss, Nexus Princess Kaiveza, not launching until the 12th of August, it would theoretically be possible for the Underpin to remain available during that first week. And if you're wondering about Horrific Visions, there's really no word from Blizzard in the fate of these. On the PTR though, they do remain accessible, and I expect that that will end up being the case in live as well. The big question is if Blizzard will end up updating the scaling for Season 3 or just leave it at Season 2 levels. If Blizzard does not retune the visions and you still have to finish an 8-mask run for the mount, then it could well be worth waiting until midway through Season 3, where power growth will likely make an 8-mask run a lot easier than it currently is. That said, if getting the mount is important to you, I do recommend having a go at an 8-mask run before the patch drops, as if Blizzard do decide to retune the Horrific Visions, it would not be the first time that a retune ends up making the content even harder than it was before. Turning to the Great Vault, as its rewards are based on the previous week's progress, you can expect Season 2 rewards to drop in the week of the 5th of August. But do keep in mind that it is almost certain that the seasonal currencies will also be reset that week, which will leave you with no way to upgrade any vault drop. With the exception of lower geared alts, it'll be pretty unlikely that you could get an upgrade from the vault in that week. This means that for people who have achieved all of their Seasonal 2 goals, that final week before the patch could well be a decent time to take a little bit of a break from the treadmill. Now, one last thing that is worthy of note about the Season 3 gearing is that the hero and myth tracks have dropped back down to 6 upgrade tiers on the PTR. This obviously opens up the question if we can expect to see another Turbo Boost event midway through Season 3. While the new dinar system, the Puzzling Cartel chips, did have a bit of a rough landing feedback-wise, the rest of the Turbo Boost event was, in my opinion, a major success, and I'm personally hoping that we will indeed see a return, hopefully with some iteration on that special currency. While the announcement of the new patch date has got the most attention this week, the current season does also have one last new thing to offer open world players and reputation hunters, with Blizzard announcing the details of the return of the Winds of Mysterious Fortune buff this coming reset. This is going to be mostly the same as the version we enjoyed in patch 11.15, offering a 20% XP leveling buff along with the Mysterious Satchel drops, which will offer improved gear, leveling power buffs, and another 10% XP buff potion, which can stack with the main 20% buff. Blizzard have also confirmed that this is going to stack with the Turbulent Time Waste buff, so this could well be a great time to do some power leveling. Of more interest to max level players though are the reputation buffs, with the 200% buff for Dragonflight reputations and 100% for War Within making a return. Last time around, this buff excluded both the Undermine reputations and Flames Radiance. But in their preview this week, Blizzard have helpfully confirmed that this time around, the Undermine reputations are going to be benefiting from the buff. The Undermine cartel reputations have proven to be a major grind, especially the dreaded Dark Fuse solutions, and I am sure I'm not the only one who is still trying to get the Paragon mounts from all of them before the next patch, so an effective doubling of the reputation for the final weeks of the patch is going to be very welcome for us. If you're someone who's still trying to catch up in that pesky Dark Fuse rep, then I do have a couple of tips for you. By far the best way to farm Dark Fuse reputation is in a 5-man group in the area behind the Blackwater headquarters. This is a densely packed group of, ironically enough, hostile Dark Fuse to farm. The spawn rate of these adds scales with the number of players, and in a 4 to 5 man group, you'll get pretty much constant fast spawns. To aid you with this farm, there's a useful item that can be purchased from the Dark Fuse Quartermaster. The prototype auto advertiser will increase the drop rates of market research. This lasts 3 minutes and a 5-minute cooldown, meaning that your group would likely want to cycle the items. If you prefer to farm your reputation solo, while you could still farm the NPCs in that area, I personally find that the spawn rates are a lot slower if you're the only person there, and if you do end up competing with farm groups, it can be pretty hard to get tags. So for solo farming, I recommend doing the scrap piles. The larger reward chests only require filling up 2 of the 3 segments in the progress bar and reward 13 to 18 research each time around. This doesn't sound like much, but with one pile spawning every 3 to 4 minutes, it actually mounts up very quickly. And unless you're doing it very late at night or early in the morning, there are usually enough other players farming as well that you can pretty reliably hit that 2 segment mark. And in the odd times you don't, you still get around 8 market research from the smaller reward box. No matter what approach you choose to do, you can actually start farming right now. Just don't hand in your market research until the Winds of Mysterious Fortune event starts this coming reset, so that you can still benefit from that double reputation. And if you really want to min-max your progress, you could wait until the next Dark Moon Fair in August the 2nd to stack an extra 10%, though I personally will be trying to get the reputation done before that. Winds of Mysterious Fortune will be running for 4 weeks, meaning that it is going to overlap with the first week of the new patch, ending with the opening of the raid in August the 12th. After several updates in player housing, including a creator event at PAX East, there has been a bit of a lull in announcements from the team who are building out the housing feature. But that lull has now been broken with the release of an update on how Neighbourhoods will work. We already know that there will be 2 Neighbourhoods, an Alliance-themed one based in Elwyn Forest and Duskwood, which is now revealed to be called Founder's Point, and a Horde one based in Durotar and Ashara, which is called Razorwind Shores. One major point of feedback has been the concern that the new areas would be overly human versus orc themed, and it does seem that this is something that the team want to try and avoid, as the new areas are going to have multiple biomes, including spooky forests and autumnal farmland for the Alliance, and windswept bluffs and lush oases for the Horde. The new zones will also be offering diverse plot types, including isolated areas for more solo-oriented players, small cozy cul-de-sacs of 2 to 3 homes for friend groups, and more central areas for those people who like something that's a bit more akin to city life. We've also finally got some confirmation that we are not just going to be limited to customizing the insides of our homes. It does now appear that we're going to also have a customizable garden area as well, with the team talking about options including adding old growth trees or even mazes. I do wonder how flexible that is going to be, as, well, you just know what players will be trying to do with publicly visible areas. And with that thought, I'm starting to think that that secluded corner plot suddenly is sounding a lot more attractive. In terms of housing acquisition, alongside those public neighbourhoods which players would be assigned to by the game's servers, private neighbourhoods can be set up either as guild-only areas or more flexibly charter neighbourhoods, which will allow the owners to have control over who can join. Both types of private neighbourhoods are going to require a minimum number of actual players to create, and it's also heavily implied that neighbourhoods will over time also have to meet an even higher requirement, albeit the team did not share what those limits would be. This does mean that people hoping for an entirely personal neighbourhood are set to be disappointed. For bigger guilds with more than 50 active players, their neighbourhoods will be able to have multiple linked instances in order to accommodate everyone. One good piece of news is that if it turns out you don't like your neighbours, you will be able to leave your neighbourhood just by giving up your house. This will save the current state of your house, meaning that once you obtain a new plot in a new neighbourhood, you'll just be able to restore it. Access to other players' gardens or homes will be controlled by the owner, who'll be able to limit it to friends, guildies, neighbours, or even just the general public. And if you do want to have a time-limited public event, you'll also have the ability to kick folks out at the end if you want. There's also going to be a gameplay element via what the team are calling endeavours. Details are fairly limited, but it sounds like they will be monthly task lists for the entire neighbourhood to complete. These will unlock cosmetic changes to the whole neighbourhood, including new decorations and NPCs, and it does seem that the requirements to complete the endeavours will scale depending on the number of active players in a neighbourhood. This system is also going to dovetail with another system to level up your house, which is called Favour. This very much looks like a renown-like track which will allow you to expand your house over time. The team shared a screenshot which showed an increased decoration limit along with a few bonus furniture items. And endeavours will also be awarding a new currency which will allow you to buy extra decorations from neighbourhood vendors. The team also seem to be leaning very heavily into the persistence of neighbourhoods, emphasising that your immediate neighbours will be the same forever, or at least until one of us decide to move on. I still do wonder how well this will work in practice, as my expectation is that there are going to be a lot of players who will obtain a new home right at the start of the new expansion, only to completely lose interest in it after a few weeks or months. The end result being neighbourhoods which will feel pretty empty. That said, given that our entire warband will have to share only 2 houses, one for the Alliance and one for the Horde, this I think will help to mitigate that effect a bit. There are still plenty of questions outstanding. For example, will we be given a truly free choice of plot, or will the game try to fill an entire public neighbourhood before creating a fresh instance? Something that would create a bit of a lottery in the amount of choice we actually get in practice. And will there be options to increase our home's favour without being reliant on the neighbourhood's willingness to engage with the Endeavour system long term? Those concerns though are just niggles. Overall, what has been announced so far very much sounds like it's right up my street, and the team who are developing the feature seem to be drawing on the success stories from other games and MMOs, but just as importantly, putting a lot of effort into avoiding the issues and downsides. Blizzard's original successes were often built on taking already established genres and then adding a bit of polish and making them a lot more accessible to a broader player base. And this whole process has very much felt to me like that old style and much beloved Blizzard. And that's it for this week's update. I'd be super interested to hear what is exciting you most about the new season. Are you looking forwards to the new raid, the new dungeon season, or just looking forwards to having even more mounts to collect? Let me know in the comments down below. If you found this update helpful, entertaining, or even just plain annoying, then do let me know by hitting that like icon. And if you want to support my channel to grow and help me to make more of these videos, along with my other content, then hit that subscribe button right now before you forget. And if you don't want to miss out whenever I release a new video, then as well as subscribing, you can follow me on social media for updates. My links are in the description below as well. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.